I would argue that's maybe the most valuable skill you can have as a professional.
We don't have enough leaders in the world today.
What do you think it takes to make a good leader?
If I'm indulging too much in life, I get uncomfortable. And I'm just like, ooh, like, you're missing out on something. Like you're gonna slip. Don't look at the dollar at hand. Look at the goal. Look at the path. It's better to have a mentor than a boss. I was updating my LinkedIn as I was learning stuff. Long story short, I ended up getting a job offer from Deloitte.
We'll probably be wrong about half this shit in 10 years.
We'll look back and
we're like, oh,
Brody, we were off, that. Boy. Yeah.
All right. Today I've got Cruz Madero on, fellow NBA cohort member of mine.
Yes, sir.
Also fellow podcast host. We're about to get into it.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for being on, man.
Yeah, dude. It's cool being on. Super funny how we found out we were both doing podcasts. I just met.
Yeah.
We were talking about something in class or like in general to the class. We're talking about LLC.
Yep.
And then she was like, oh, why do you want an LLC? And I was like, no, for no reason. I have a podcast with a couple of my buddies.
Yeah.
And then right after
and
class,
I was just sitting up at the front of the class, and I was like, we hadn't been in a group together yet or anything. I was just like, what? Another podcast host in here? So we talked after class about it. Turns out we both have a podcast, and here we go.
No, you were
we
like,
went to Podfest together.
Dude, you do a podcast, right? I'm like, yeah. You do a podcast? And yeah. I'm like, all right, check you out. I'm like, oh, he does it. I like this.
We started talking shop.
Because everybody kind of does a podcast here and there, you know. But I was like, man, Brody does a podcast. This is a great show.
Same with you, man.
Hey, and then
you've been at it a lot longer than me too. You're past 2 years now?
No, we make 2 years in April.
Okay, so right around a year ahead of me. I make 1 year in like a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're doing like, man, we're doing the same things right now, and it's like we're 2 years in.
Yeah.
So you're doing your thing.
You gotta start somewhere. I mean, when I look at where I started to where I'm at now, like it's a totally different podcast.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you got to. But it was funny. So I'm walking to the garage, and then Brody's like, hey, dude, you said you do a podcast?
Yeah.
We checked it. And then I was like, hey, I don't know if you know, but there's a podcast expo or whatever. Like, I'm going to go. And then you were like, no, I'm presenting.
Yeah. And we're like, no way. Like, yeah.
I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
it just like came together.
For the studio build.
Yeah. So I talked about that, met a ton of people. You were there too at the, we talked for a while at the little after event too.
Yeah. That was
fun. There's a lot of cool people there.
It was interesting. It's information overload for sure.
Absolutely.
And then you got to kind of
business card overload too.
Business card overload.
Mm-hmm.
And then like it's hard too because there's like great tips and tricks, great resources, great people. But then there's so much that you also got to kind of like decipher what's not worth it.
Exactly. Yeah. It was like you get handed way more than you're going to be able to follow up on, and you got to say like, okay, this is worth it, this is not.
Because did you get kind of a vibe, and I'm sure this is that I don't go to very much networking events.
That was my first like really big conference like that.
Really?
Yeah,
that was my first for sure by far. It was super fun, but
definitely want to go to more.
There's something about those events that people want to give advice.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Right?
Not always the best advice.
Like, they just want to give it, you know, and it's just
worst advice I heard there was that you don't need video for your podcast. You certainly need video. There's a lot of kind of old heads there that have had a podcast for like 13 years, and like they grew this huge following because there wasn't a lot of competition in the market at the time, and you could kind of penetrate the market without video, and they still don't have it. You definitely need it as a new
You're
podcast.
Blockbuster.
Yeah. That's true.
You're telling me I don't need video. You are Blockbuster.
Mm-hmm. They're not going to get new people that are like part of the new generation in their podcast.
It's interesting because there's definitely, you know, like we do video. So there's a market for people for video, definitely new listeners, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it is funny because when you think of podcasting, it's like, no, it's audio. Like that's when you're in the car, that's when you're at the gym or something like that.
That's how it started.
But it's like you're missing out on a whole. It's a new thing.
Yeah,
podcasting these days, like while the market's becoming more and more flooded than it was like when that guy was doing his podcast, it's also not what it was. Like podcasting now is like shows.
Yeah, it is. It's an interview show. I mean, when I started this, I didn't even call it a podcast for a little while. I called it an interview show because that's what I felt like I was making. You can make it your own show, and people. It used to just be kind of someone coming on and talking regularly. It's kind of your traditional podcast. Now you've got people coming on. You can interview people. You can have people on just to talk and hang out. Yeah, but it is really more of a show.
And I'm definitely a firm believer, like even Spotify, even the listening apps or whatnot, they're gonna adapt to video.
Oh,
so then you will be phased out completely.
Exactly.
Like Spotify already has video podcasts and stuff like that, right? So it's a listening app. It's for music playlists. You could do podcasts and stuff. Our podcast has video on Spotify, and it's like Apple, all these other platforms are going to follow suit eventually. And then it's like, all right, now you really are phased out because you didn't even build. You know what I mean? Like when me and you were worried about, all right, well, that looked terrible.
Yeah, exactly. You're not used to doing that. You're not used to worrying about that at all.
No. Yeah, so it's pretty crazy. But it's fun, man. When I first came here, I was like, wow, like you opened my mind to getting a studio. Because
studio's fun.
I'm recording in the man cave right now, which is cool, but also like some guests we might want to say certain things, you know, but it's always like, you know where I live, like
it's like, nice to have that secondary location, like can only track you down to a certain point,
especially we get like rappers and stuff like that, and sometimes you want to call them out and shit, but you just
and just having people come into your home, it's like kind of interruptive to your everyday life. It's nice to have it like, it's nice to kind of like section off your efforts in this way.
Shout out to my fiance. She has to deal with that all the time. She'll come out of the shower and then there's a rapper and like 4 other of his buddies and we're like, what's up? That is podcast night.
She's like, I just wanted to make dinner.
She's like, jeez. Like, I just wanted to watch Perfect Match in the living room right now, man. Gosh.
So let's get into what you do a little bit. We kind of talked about how we met. We're in the MBA cohort. Let's start by, what drew you to getting your MBA in the first place?
Oh, we didn't even talk about that.
We didn't, yeah.
No,
let's get into it.
I like that, man. So I'm currently, I've worked at the same company for about 10 years now.
Pretty huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because I'm only 26 and I've been at my company for 10 years. So I've been there since I was 16.
Not a lot of people can say that.
Right. And I've been trying to leave. No, I'm just.
You're like, my LinkedIn DMs are open. If you did,
No, it's a great company. I love. They
have been for 10 years.
But I'm in accounting. That's my undergrad. I got my bachelor's in accounting. When I was in my mind, I know that was a long shot for me. Like, there's not a lot of...
Getting that degree?
Yeah, man. Like, my family, I'm a first generation bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
Even, like... So, for me, it was a long shot. Like, one of my things was like, all right, if I can't do it, I'm just going to fall back on something else. I'll do this. Like, the whole time, I'm setting up...
So the path wasn't necessarily outlined for you.
No. So, it was very... And I wasn't the best student either. Like, I was motivated, college. But like, man, like that, like I was just like B's, you know, C's and B's or whatever. I was just getting by. So it was always, and at UCF too, they have like high restrictions in the accounting program. Like if you get too many C's, like you kind of get booted out.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, oh man, like towards the end of the semester, I was
There's certain classes where if you get a C, you can't even continue in the program. Like you have to retake it, and you get like one retake. And if you don't make a B or higher on that, you're just out of the program. Yeah,
intermediate accounting 1. That was the first one. You just don't get in. So that was
I was finance, so it was business finance. Oh. I always said I saw a lot of good men fall to that class.
Dude.
Yeah.
Dude.
Bitch of a class.
Yeah, for sure. But once I graduated, I was just so excited, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go to work. I'm gonna do this and that, and I didn't even think about the next step, like education wise or whatever. And I was like, I never even saw myself getting a master's, like let alone the bachelor's degree and stuff like that. So in my mind, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go for the CPA. I was like, that gives me all the tools I need to do what I want to do. You know, big company, small company. If I want to do my own firm or something like that, I could do that. So I think it was about a year after I graduated, I was like, all right, let's do it. So I got all the programs and materials to study for the CPA. I signed up and registered and stuff like that. And I studied for about 6 months. And it's like self-study. It's like, here's these courses you can take and it gets you better or whatever. And I went and I talked about it a lot too. And then I failed. I took the first test. You need a 70, I think you need a 75 in each of the 4 exams. I think I got like a 67 and it hurt. And I was like, damn, dude. I was literally like 10 questions away from like, all right, cool, next. You know, and I started with the hardest one because it cost some money. Not too much if you think about a grand scheme, but I was like, I don't even know if I could get this. So it could be a waste of money. But I failed. What's funny is when we started our podcast, our first 10 episodes, I'm talking about studying for the CPA, this and that. And then like maybe like episode 15 or something, I talk about failing. Yeah. And I'm like, guys, like I've been talking about it for, I can't not talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you put it out on the podcast.
It was public. I was like, I'm grinding. I'm gonna do what I gotta do. You guys know what it's about, like motivation, this and that. And then I was like, guys, I failed, man. Like I did not get it. I got a 67 or whatever. But then I was like, you know what? And I was, man, it kind of lets you know there's no like picture or some guy that says this is what you should be doing, right? It's a feel thing. It's a feel. And I was really depressed studying for the CPA, dude. Yeah. Like really depressed. Like it was just a bunch of stuff that I don't care to do. Like here's your 10K filing. Here's all these corporate filings. You know, it's also CPA, so it's like public. So I'm not even relate to those types of businesses, like the big corporate public businesses. Here's all these like
there's like probably a disconnect between what you were actually doing at work and what you're studying.
Huge disconnect. Like
and if you are trying to stay with that company, which you still have, then you're probably not going to face a lot of the things that you're learning in that.
No, that's why like people talk about CPAs all the time, and I'm like, I know CPAs that you don't want doing your taxes. You know what I mean? Like that. Just CPA is like you did really good on that exam. Similar to school. Like we're in the MBA program. Not all MBAs are equal. You know what I mean? Like, we all got our certificate. It's just like when you graduate high school. Not all high school graduates are equal. Not all whatever accounting people are equal. Or
there's a difference between being really, really good at passing a test and being able to apply those skills in the real world.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, I failed the CPA. I started studying again. I was like, all right, here we go. I was too close. I'm not going to give up now. But then, man, like 2 months in, I was just like, ugh. Because it's something like, it's not like, oh, you learn the material, so you just like review it again and then you take it. And it's like, no, like there's so much stuff you have to cram. It's literally like learn it, cram it, take the exam. If you failed it, you literally got to kind of like cram again. There's too much content to just like review or whatever. So I just got so depressed, and I was talking to my fiance and stuff, and I was just like I am not happy. Like this is killing me. Like I know it takes work to be great in life. Don't get me wrong. It takes work, but I am not happy. Like this is giving me zero joy. And partly it was probably because like what you were talking about, I didn't even see the benefit. Like the benefit at the end started to dwindle for me. Right. And that took the soul out of the whole purpose of it, you know? So I stopped, focused on work for a little bit, and I felt bad about myself for a while. Like, I was just like, damn.
Because you had this whole thing where you were like, all right, what's the next step? I'm doing it. What's the next step? Doing it. And then all of a sudden you hit a thing where you're like, okay, this next step I had planned didn't pan out. Can't do it. Yeah. There's no next step.
Yeah. And I don't want to say it's like, it
wasn't right for you, it sounded like.
Man, and it's not for the weak. You know what I mean? Like, that stuff is not for the weak. So I have zero problem saying, like, man, I just couldn't do it. Like, timing is everything. Like, maybe if I had nothing to worry about but school and stuff like that, then yeah. But man, it was a lot. So it was about a year later, and I was like, you know what? Which we'll talk about later. But I was like, I can't help but to think that I'm a generalist at work. Like, I'm doing IT stuff, I'm doing accounting stuff, I'm good at talking with people, whatever. What better program is going to set me up than an MBA, which is pretty much a generalist type of schooling?
Yeah.
And I just did it.
Talk about it a little bit, we've had economics, accounting,
quantitative business tools, which is just like economics,
business stats kind of, and then management of organizations, and then now we're in business law and strategic marketing. So it kind of covers, the idea is it covers all the different various areas of business, and it all kind of relates back to like actually applying these skills in your work. So it's very good for the generalist.
Yeah,
Can you talk a little bit about what you mean when you say generalist and how that compares to the opposite?
Yeah, I mean, so there's people, and we all know, like, there's people like, you know, you got a tax guy, or you got you got an IT guy that's really good at, you know, one thing, right? But the best. You need something done, that person will get that done.
Mm-hmm. Top of their field in like a particular skill.
Right. Which there's value. What is the saying? A master at one is a master at, a master of all is a master of none.
Yeah.
Right? So there's pros and cons for sure. But just in generalist could be applied multiple ways too. I like you could be a generalist in accounting, meaning you could do costing, you could do AR, AP, like reporting, stuff like that, you know. Or you could be a tax guy, or you could be a costing guy, and that's about it. You know what I mean? But you're the best at that because there's so much that goes into that. But specialists,
and you're gonna really fit in where there's a need for that very specialized skill.
Yeah, and what's crazy is, like, at our point, you know, because you're a business owner, so it's a little different. Mm-hmm. But like at our age and at our, like, you know, when you're at your first stages of your career, it's hard not to gravitate to be a specialist because specialists get paid.
Yeah. Quick. It's like it's the very tempting, like, if you become this, you will get a much better salary than your peers. Yeah. Immediately.
Like, all your instant job offers are like for me, you
could come out of college with a 6-figure position. Yeah. If you're enough of a specialist.
Yeah. If you could specialize, you could get paid quick and instant. But there's a cap there, right? Or there's a ceiling there. Mm-hmm. And only those that kind of like take the risk early in their career and sacrifice and go around and learn different things get to see that benefit or get to see that value.
So I think this is a really good segue to talk about your personal experience with this, because as you're kind of hinting at and getting to, you ended up going more the generalist route. I think it'd be interesting to talk about how that's played out for you in your personal career, like since kind of putting that together and going that direction, because it's based on what we were talking about off air. It seems like that's been at least the right route for you and has played out well for you.
Yeah, and that's why I also say, like, we're talking about generalists and specialists, but there's levels to that. Don't get me wrong, you know, but
it's a spectrum almost.
Yeah, it's like how can I you know, it's kind of like I like football only could be seen as a specialist, but then it's like but I like all the things, and I couldn't tell you the first thing about quarterback. That's a specialist within football. You know what I mean?
And then like, go a layer deeper. You're the premier coach of, like, how to best maneuver in the pocket.
Right.
One little aspect of being a quarterback.
So I just want to preface it with, like, I understand there's levels to this, right? Yeah. Because I do specialize in things, and there's benefits to that, and we'll get into it. But for the most part, I've seen myself as a generalist. I started at my company working in the warehouse. So I had some warehouse experience, and then we could kind of talk about that. But when I got my degree in accounting, I had an internship to go work at a CPA firm to do audit. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh yeah, like I'm in accounting. Here, I almost got it. I was like, oh yeah, I'm in accounting. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'll go do audit or whatever. And then right at that time, my company went and got a new system, this and that. They hired they're pretty much building a department to facilitate the new system implementation. Yeah. And there was a job posting it was like cost accounting, something. And I was like, I was like, a job is better than an internship.
Yeah.
And also this was December 2019. So this was a year before COVID.
Yeah.
So I remember I took the job, obviously, and I remember thinking like, damn, I'm so happy I took the job. Because imagine trying to keep an internship during COVID. Like, those are the first people gone, bro.
Absolutely.
You have zero personal connection with any of them. You're probably remote most of the time or something as an intern. And then it's like, yeah.
They're getting cut, if anyone's getting cut.
Yeah. So I was like, thank God for that. But so like my first job, when I got my accounting degree, I was working in a warehouse. I couldn't wait to get into accounting. I'm like, I want to do what I went to school for.
Yeah.
And then I go to IT, and a big reason for that was the person hiring. I've respected her and I loved her. So that was the main reason. And it felt like a weird transition. I'm not going to lie to you, dude. It felt like one of those moments where you're like, I went to school for this and I'm doing this anyways. Like, what are we doing? Like, I just wasted 4 years of my life and freaking 15 grand or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, God. But it still was like.
You're adding another skill.
Over time, like after a year, I was like, ooh, like that's something that everybody does when they get out of school, right? Like they just get deeper in and they get better at it, at accounting or whatever their field is. So I went and I started in IT, and it was pretty much system. I was a business analyst, so any system troubleshooting, stuff like that. But because I was in accounting, I was able to help out even more for the accounting department and stuff like that, because they were like, oh, cool, like you're learning the system, you figured out the system, and you also can like, you know what we're trying to say, you know what we're talking about. And that was the first click for me where I was like, all right, like there's different avenues in this world that I might be better at. And meanwhile, knowing I'm not specializing in anything yet, but I started considering specializing in the system stuff. So much so that at a certain point, I got a job offer for system consulting, and was
same company or a different company?
It was a different company.
Okay.
So, it's full circle moment too, because like in the accounting world, when you're in your undergrad, everybody's talking about the big four accounting accounting firms like Deloitte, Price Waterhouse. Yeah. There's a couple others.
Grant Thornton.
Yeah. Yep. Like everybody talks about it. What's so funny is all throughout my undergrad, and I'm hearing that, I'm like, like I never even looked at those firms, because I'm like, you guys are gonna get those. Like I know the grades you guys get, and you're looking at them right now. Okay. I'm not even Googling them. I don't even know. You know what? Like I know Big Four, but like you guys know the names.
You're way ahead of me.
Yeah, like you got it. Like I'm gonna get the jobs you guys don't get, or that you guys pass off or whatever. Like that was my mindset, and I was totally happy with that. But full circle, it was an amazing moment for me. I got really good at the system stuff. I had a great boss, mentor, and I got a LinkedIn. If you're not using LinkedIn, get on there. That's a freaking social media resume or whatever. But I got a message.
We talked about it in class today.
Oh my God, bro! If you're not on LinkedIn,
I asked Mike to send me that presentation because I actually learned some stuff on there that I did not know.
Like the promoting and stuff?
Yeah. Like just we have like an agency that's helping us with some of our advertising, and there was some stuff that I just didn't know about, like the intricacies of how it works.
Oh yeah, that was awesome. They did really good, man.
Yeah.
But I had a recruiter hit me up about system stuff because I was updating my LinkedIn as I was learning stuff. And long story short, I ended up getting a job offer from Deloitte for system consulting.
Wow.
So it's not Deloitte.
Very full circle.
Not Deloitte Audit and Tax, which is like the big four that everybody talks about, but it was Deloitte Consulting.
Yeah, because Deloitte is like a massive consulting firm.
Huge. Yeah.
One of the biggest, maybe the biggest in the U.S. Like that.
Yeah.
That name, just like everyone knows that name.
And they just opened up a place in Lake Mary or something, so they had a lot of jobs to fill and stuff. And it was like timing. It was perfect timing.
Mm-hmm.
But I got an offer to be a consultant there, and I was like, man, like I took a step back and I was like, wow, dude, like that's a big I'm getting in through the back door.
Yeah.
Because I've applied there before for audit and tax, and I get an email the same day saying, oh, thank you so much for
yeah.
Thank you so much for applying, but like, no.
I think there's a parallel here if you want to take it to talking about. You had talked about this article that you saw, and we could talk about the article too, but talking about just specializing in areas that are going to have issues coming up in the future.
Yeah.
I think that's like an extension of it, but what I'm noticing that you did there that was really cool, whether you meant to or it was intentional or not at first, is like you ended up specializing in this area that had more of a need.
Yeah.
Like everyone has, like in the accounting world, right? Everyone has this picture in their mind of like going to work at one of the big four and you're made if you can make it to one of those. But then you get to the reality of the career world and the professional world, and it's what is the actual industry need right now? That's what's actually on the table and up for negotiation.
Yeah.
So if you can anticipate those needs and build your skills around those, that's where you become really valuable.
It's like selling a product, you know. It's like here's a pen or whatever. It's like we all know what it's for or whatever, but it's like those that are good at selling it know how to say why you need this thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why do you need this?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing. It's like getting at the needs of the industry, the needs of what you're doing, what are the real core needs, and then like selling that. So what you were talking about, let me see.
And even if you're talking about accounting specifically, I mean, you could be top of your class at the best accounting program in the world, come out and talk about that. But if there's someone that has like a very specific skill that a business happens to be lacking in at the right time, is going to be a better candidate ultimately.
Yep. 100%.
Because it's what actually applies to the professional need.
Yeah. And it's funny because I was going to go work at a CPA firm and I specialize in things that they do not do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Costing, supply chain, inventory value, systems, stuff like that. You know, like those are all things that you can't pay a CPA to do for you.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit subconscious. Like it wasn't totally strategized, but when I started in the IT department, it did click for me. You're not going to be better at accounting than a lot of these people, but you're better at trying. So you're better at learning and digging and fishing. You know what I mean?
I would argue that's maybe the most valuable skill you can have as a professional, is just being good at learning new skills. I mean, you are going to constantly need to improve in your craft. And if you're the best of your class, but you don't improve after that, you come out and you get the job and you just don't grow anymore, then you're going to get passed by the people that are growing more.
Yeah, 100%. When we got our new system, you see people that were just used to every day.
Yeah.
And when you get a new system, it's like changing your laptop. It's like changing your the way you see your everyday. Like
if you get too complacent and too comfortable in it, it's like you're a boomer getting left in the dust because everyone's in tech now.
Yeah, well, it's funny too because another reason why I leaned into that was my cost accounting professor. I I specialize in cost accounting, right? That was the only class I failed in my undergrad. And I took it in the summer, and he was the guy that failed me. He talked so much about other stuff, right? And that's part I stopped going to class because I was like, I could just read the textbook or whatever. But I totally regret that because he was talking real life.
Yeah.
And a couple of the things he was saying was, he was like, you guys are in accounting, and I know you guys, you're going to do well and you got job security or whatever. But he was like, you need to know that these big companies are hiring computer science people, like tech people, and teaching them about balance sheets.
Right.
They can't,
because why would they keep someone on full-time salary when they can have a computer science person come in, build the system that does the minimum of what they need and just let it run?
Yeah. And like when I heard that, I was just like, oh, it's like I was immature listening to it, but like that statement resonates with me till today, where it's like it's a lot easier to teach a computer science guy, like a tech nerd, a balance sheet and an income statement. That's our MBA class. You know what I mean? Than it is to teach an accountant how to code.
The MBA is very interesting because you get like the minimum viable dose of each thing. They're like, here's like the base of what you need to be able to effectively operate in this area, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like the rest of their time, a lot of them are like some kind of consultant or come from like being in big business, having their success already.
Yep.
And they're going to teach you that, and then they're going to say, okay, but we're also going to talk about business in general and how it actually works.
Right. Yeah, but that article that you were referencing, and it goes to like what you've mentioned on the podcast before, where it's like, just be a problem solver, right? I love that statement. Like, the problem solver will always have work to do and will always be thought of when there's work to be done.
Yeah.
That's like 1,000%.
If you extrapolate that out for a second, what is a CEO of a company? It's someone who is constantly going from one fire that needs to be put out to the next.
Yeah.
And just handling it.
Yeah.
An effective CEO, they literally do nothing but solve problems.
Solve problems. Because the business is running for the most part. So you're just trying to facilitate and make sure it does good, make good decisions, and put it in the right direction, or whatever the case is.
Exactly.
It's true. And what that person needs is a problem solver. And what that person needs is a problem. Like, no matter what, you're solving problems.
Yeah.
Or you should be. And if you're not, then there's a good chance you are the problem.
Yeah. That's a clue.
To be honest, bro. To be honest. But I saw this article because I like that statement. But to take it one step further is, if you can foresee and you know what you want to do, why don't you try specializing in the problem?
Yes.
Right? And
I love this.
What I mean by that is, I saw this article where it was the VP of Oracle system or whatever, and he was talking about what he believes the top 4 issues are going to be for future CFOs. So I clicked it and I was like, oh, let me see. And he put, and it's obviously an effect from COVID and all the stuff that we're going through now, but cost controlling, supply chain, technology, more importantly, like getting a return on investment on the technology investments you make, and then getting your company not to work in silos, meaning like don't let accounting just do accounting and then like marketing is just doing marketing, and
they need to be talking to each other.
Yeah, like they're operating like they're separate entities. Yeah. You got to get everybody to be more cohesive and stuff like that. Those were the top 4 problems, and I was like, thank God I did my path that I did, because I gravitated toward problems, and then hindsight, I've been specializing in the future issues that we're seeing.
Yeah.
And that's just, for me, that was just like a unexpected consequence. Like, it was just a great coincidence. But also, like, for those listening, it's like, if you can foresee that, if you could try, and now moving forward, I'm trying to foresee that. I'm not worried about the next 5 years. I kind of want to think about in the next 10, 15 years and what those issues might be and what can I do to specialize in that.
Yeah.
Because, man, like that's right now, like the fact that cost accounting, inventory valuation, systems, all those things are on my LinkedIn. I get constant messages from recruiters because they just search keywords and stuff like that, and then your profile keeps popping up. Your profile keeps popping up. Your profile.
I think that's a good general tip. If you are not getting any kind of job offer while you're already in a good job, then you might not be positioned correctly.
Oh,
it feels like a weird thing to talk about because if you're happy in your job, then even if you're not planning on leaving, then like you wouldn't be thinking about getting job offers, but it's kind of just a sign of being positioned correctly.
Yeah.
Even if you are going to stay with your job indefinitely till the day you retire, your job is going to adapt and change, and your company is going to adapt and change and face those types of challenges that you're planning for. And if you're getting job offers and stuff on LinkedIn, that should be a sign that you're positioned correctly.
Yeah.
In what you're doing, or not if you're not getting them.
Yeah, and it's a little bit like you should have a backup plan too. Like it's a little bit like I know people that don't operate or say things they want to, and it takes a toll on them because they know like this, I have this or nothing. And that's not healthy.
No.
That's not healthy for you. That's not healthy for the company. Because it's kind of like you don't want yes men.
Yeah.
Just because they don't have nothing else, right? You want people that are confident in what they think, what they know, and if you don't like the opinion and you fire me, that's okay because I have something. I know I have opportunities, and for those, if you don't think that way, then it's also, that's the type of person that does get comfortable a little bit, and it is depending on the stage in life. Like we're two young men talking right now, so don't get me wrong. Like I know. We all have our stages in life or whatever, but
we'll probably be wrong about half this shit in 10 years.
We'll look back and
we're like, oh,
Brody, we were off, boy. Yeah. We were
and then we do the reunion podcast and we correct all the wrongs.
Yeah, well then we're not even working anymore. We're doing podcasts full time, dude.
Hey, cheers to that.
Cheers to that, dude. Good thing we were wrong about that because this podcast shit worked.
Exactly.
No, but that article made me feel good because I found that I happen to have specialized in things that are gonna be an issue in the future. And then
zooming out one level, you found that article because either you follow someone who follows someone who follows someone, or you follow the Oracle, the VP of Oracle. Do you think that these like executive positions at these large companies are good people to follow on LinkedIn to kind of like get an idea of that? Because it seems like you follow or you saw this high level executive at a company that was able to provide that information that kind of helps you focus in and hone what you're doing. Do you think that's a good method to kind of keep yourself educated in what's coming?
Yes, but not who. LinkedIn, I follow and connect with recruiters.
Interesting.
Straight recruiters. Like I go like Robert Half, all these different companies that are big staff recruiting agencies and stuff like that. I follow all of them. I'll connect with all of them. I'll like their posts, because that article I saw was one of the big recruit. She works for Robert Half or whatever, and she's one of the directors or whatever there. And that's her job, is to keep posting things relevant that keeps people thinking about what they might need to have in the workforce. Who's better about what's needed in the workforce than recruiters?
They know exactly what the challenge. Well, they have both sides, right? And I speak from being in the recruiting world myself. They have the side of knowing what employers are looking for exactly, and knowing what employees are looking for exactly. And it's a recruiter's job to marry those two. So they're talking, the ones that are posting about their experiences are talking about seeing both sides of that.
And that's why their posts are like that much more insightful, because they're just like,
that's a great tip.
They're constantly thinking about, or they're constantly seeing the failures. They're either seeing the failures from the person trying to get the job, and they're posting things that help, give you game on that, if you're not talking with them or whatever. But then they're also seeing the failures on the employer. For instance, like, oh, resume didn't say this or that. They ended up not taking my guy. They took my other guy that I didn't recommend, but he had the resume, and they fired him 6 months later.
Yeah.
And, they're like saying things like that, and it's just like, ooh, like those are the most
you get a really
things.
Good sense of where the industry's actually at.
Yeah, and that's their job too. So like, again, like I maybe I took too much credit for how my profile set up, right? But I'm also connecting with recruiters. So like,
recruiters are salivating right now at how many followers you're about to get them.
Bro, that I talked to one of our guys in the MBA class. He was telling me about how he's trying to find something. And I was like, look, man, if I was you, I'd be looking at recruiting agencies in your field, in your market, and just connect.
It's free to follow them.
They post job postings, they post this or that. Like they've seen so many resumes, like more resumes than who you're, trying to apply to and whatnot. And yeah, that's one of the best tips I could give about LinkedIn for sure is recruiters.
I've never heard that. That's a great tip.
Yeah, that post.
Follow recruiters in your industry.
Yeah, 100%. They see
whether
both
you're looking
sides.
for a job or not, they're going to tell you exactly what's going on, what you should be looking for as an employee, and what employers are looking for.
Yeah, man.
What your company probably needs.
Yeah, and they'll tell you if you're not getting a lot of action, and you have a lot of recruiters in your network, then that more solidifies what you were saying, like. You got an issue with how you're positioning yourself or something like that. And then if you position yourself right and you got all these recruiters in your network, then you're going to be kind of like annoyed. And that's a good thing. You know what I mean? Because what's better than the next best thing from job security is a good backup plan, right? Like it's like, all right, cool. Like I don't even need job security here. I know I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like that's the next best thing. Because I do think you see people like get in certain issues at companies for job security or whatever, right? Like I'm not going to promote people, or I don't want to like raise, or empower people around me because I want to keep that control. You know, like I want to make sure I got that control or whatever the case is. And it's like, if you know you got a good backup plan, like you're not worried about, and ultimately that's the best thing to do. That's going to elevate you at the end, you
exactly.
know? But if you can't see that, then worst case, your backup plan.
It blows my mind when I see stuff like that happening in organizations, because it's like as a business owner, like, like you can see objectively, like, damn, like if this person was willing to give that control a little bit and like promote those around them, it's not going to detract from their ability. If anything, it's going to show that they're a very good leader and they should probably be promoted more and be given more opportunity. But people get like complacent in their position and they're like, well, I don't want someone else to come take it.
Yeah,
I don't want to figure out how to outsource this part of my job and find tech to do it because that's what I'm being paid for.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like if you do it, you're just showing that you're good, you're better at your job. You can do your job more effectively.
For so many reasons, man. And honestly, more than that, we just had that management class last semester. You said leadership. That shows leadership, man. We don't have enough leaders in the world today.
What do you think it takes to make a good leader? What are a few things? We could talk about like stuff we learned in the management class because that was a great class.
Yeah. Yeah. Personally, a good leader will make you buy in. At my
they rope you into the vision.
They rope you into the vision.
Yeah. And
they're not assigning. They're explaining, or they're selling. They're selling you work. In my experience, I feel like that has been a good leader. Somebody that is worried about the result foremost. That's the biggest goal, but also like how you fit into that process a little bit too. Somebody that doesn't fold under pressure and has a solution, or is calm under pressure and says, what are we gonna do, man? Like, come here, like let's talk about this. Not shies away from issues and stuff like that. There's not enough people like that, man. And then ultimately, like what we were just saying, having the power and the ego and everything in between to promote those, not promote like job promotion, but just like, look, man, like if you got a project done because of one of your employees and that person gets zero recognition from it and you let that happen, your leadership's a little...
I think you're a bad leader if you are constantly taking that credit, like just because, like if you think about like a really big organization, right, where you've got like multiple levels of management, and maybe you've got person A that's being managed by person B, who is in turn being managed by person C, and this middleman, person B, is having person A have a lot of successes and solve a lot of problems, but person B takes all the credit for person C.
That's a problem.
That's a problem. That person's not gonna. That's not good for the organization.
And
you might lose person A because of that. There's gonna be resentment. They're gonna feel like their efforts are not being rewarded. And ultimately, if you're thinking long term, person C is gonna very much appreciate that you had the leadership to be able to make person A successful.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And when you talk about like the current economy and like you talk about like a lot of the white collar jobs are getting laid off, stuff like that, right? You need leaders. Because I've seen firsthand, hey, no raises or something like that, right? Something where it's like monetarily, whoa, what the heck? But you can literally see good leaders and bad leaders, where the bad leaders, those departments are freaking out.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm here for the monetary. Like, if I don't get monetary, like, I'm not sure if I like my job anymore. And then there's other departments where they had good leaders. And you literally, like they were motivated from other things outside of monetary. And it's partly like a good leader gives you job satisfaction.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, like they're getting satisfaction out of other things than the monetary benefits of their job, because the leader's also worried about their career development. The leader's worried about this. So then when the company goes, hey, no raises, that department goes like, all right, well, we're gonna stick this out, right? We're gonna make it. Because the team is now reciprocating the same sentiment that the leader's been saying this whole time, versus like a manager that's kind of a hard ass, results driven, this and that, where and when I say management, when I say leader, like there's a place for that.
Oh yeah,
for sure. Like you're not a good leader either if you don't have those things in there.
But you got to be adaptive too.
Yeah.
If you can't get hard on people if it's not because of what they're doing and it's because of like what's going on. You can't just take it out on your team. You got to be adaptive and figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, man. Like that's one thing. Like leaders are important out here, man. And be one. You don't have to be a manager to be a leader. You don't have to be in this upper position to be a leader. Like
you could be a leader at the lowest levels in an organization.
And people know. And that's how you get promoted and stuff like that too. Maybe you don't. That's life. You know, like maybe you don't, but like
you're gonna be better served for taking that initiative either way.
Yeah, like I've accelerated at my company very quickly, but I haven't gotten in my face a lot of like resentment or anything, because I feel like I was one of those people from the warehouse days. Right? Even when I was in the warehouse, we got our new system and stuff. I'm like, all right, guys, like we got end of year inventory. We got this and that. How are we going to do this? You know, stuff like that. And then we kind of like come out on the other end, and I wasn't in charge of them by any means.
Yeah.
But like, it was kind of like, getting the people together and kind of saying like, what are we gonna do? We're gonna do this, and then and then when I got that IT job, they were kind of like, yeah, like good for you, dude, or whatever. And then same thing in that in that team. Not that I was a leader in that team, it was a different environment or whatever, but like that helps. If it doesn't help you get promoted, it helps people understand why. Yeah. Sometimes, yeah, I don't know. That's a good one.
One thing we talked about off air that you kind of reminded me of through a couple stories that you told of just experiencing good leaders throughout your career is just benefiting from finding good mentors. Could you talk a little bit about your personal experience just finding good mentors and how that's helped you move along in your career?
Yeah.
And how you find good mentors?
To find a good blueprint in anything is beneficial, right? Like if
it's a shortcut on how to get it done easier and faster.
Like if I could have seen you before we started our podcast, we would have shaved a year off.
Well, it's because I mean, candidly, like the reason I have done anything right in my podcast is because I've observed other podcasts. There's a lot I'm not doing right because like if I would have started following podcasts 5 years before I did, I would know more. But just I everything I've learned, I've seen from other podcasts and implemented.
And that's a skill, dude. That's one thing. Like I thought that was, like I'm like you. Me and you are similar people. To observe and learn, and then like
replicate.
Boom, that's a skill, man. Like or like how they say like some people can see and learn, and then they don't do it, and then some people see and they have to get hit to learn. Like you gotta get the spanking just to learn. Or something like that. Like there's people like that. Like it's not easy or whatever. But I just want to say it. That's
proactive learning, I think.
Yeah,
is what I would call it.
Anyways, blueprint. Or whatever. If a blueprint works, a blueprint helps, a blueprint is a shortcut, man. And everybody knows that, but yet we do things in life that aren't that. Like we shy away from people that might know more than you. Mm-hmm. Why? Because you're insecure.
It's a little bit of an ego hit.
Yeah.
To think you know something about something, and then you talk to someone, and you get immediate feedback that tells you, I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. It's an ego hit.
It's an ego hit.
Yeah.
And we shy away from it. Mm-hmm. But it's the most beneficial thing, man. And we're talking about mentors and stuff. I'm somebody that hasn't went through the traditional steps of getting a mentor. Like I went to UCF. There's all types of opportunities for mentorships and whatnot. In our MBA program, they give us so many opportunities for like really dope, cool mentorships and stuff. And I haven't.
There's a whole program around it, yeah.
Yeah, like I haven't taken advantage of that yet. But what I have done is people at my company in all departments, and mainly people that you would like to be one day, or in a position that you would like to be one day, right? Like we have a quality.
Or that just have skills that you would like to have.
Yeah. Period. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Period. No, but exactly. So like people that like not even in accounting that I have as mentors right now. You know what I mean? But it's just like I love what you do and how you do it. I will talk to you about it all the time.
Yeah.
And I have a bunch of mentors at the company I work at now. Not a bunch, but like 3 or so, and some have left. Some are still there, but those are people I talk to now for all kinds of things. When I get when there's job postings, those are the people that advocate for you and stuff within the company. So you might think
because they've seen that hunger to grow and succeed.
Yeah. For example, when I was in the warehouse, I talked to the director of quality, which is like totally out of my field. I've talked to our purchasing manager, stuff like that, where I make them my mentor. I'm just like, yeah, no, like that's awesome. No, I'm going to school and I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. Like I got it. I'm gonna do this, and then I'll see you tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And whenever those job postings come out and I apply for it, they're kind of like, hey, who's applying? Oh, Cruz.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, that kid is,
They're co-signing it. Yeah.
They co-sign it. So that's one benefit of it. The other benefit is,
how do you get buy-in from a good mentor? How do you get them to get interested in you? Because if you think about it in like the exchange there, they have something you don't have. So how do you get them to buy into you?
In my experience, you have to come from a super humble and vulnerable place where you have to make them want to help you. Because if you talk to all your superiors or bosses or managers or anybody around you as if like you got it figured out and you don't need no help kind of thing, nobody's gonna help you. You know,
it's like you telling them, I don't want to learn from you.
Yeah, like if you're just like for instance, if I was in the warehouse and I was just like, yeah, no, like I'm gonna get my degree and I'm gonna go work at the CPA firm or whatever. So like this is just like this is for fun. Like I don't know, like my mom works here.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like I don't know. But instead it was like, hey, like how do you deal with those? I just saw you deal with that situation. How you did it very well. How do you do that? Because I couldn't do that.
You hit on something really well there. If you compliment the way someone handled a situation, that will immediately open them up to, thank you for that compliment. I would love to tell you about how I did this awesome thing.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah.
And then also like bringing in, like talking about your plan with them, stuff like that. Like, hey, I'm doing this, but I'm going to school for this, and I'm really, like, I think I could do it. Like, what do you think? You know, like it definitely, you have to be humble. You got to come from a humble place, and you should be.
Yeah.
Like you're not trying to get mentorship from somebody that's equal to or less than or whatever the case is. So you better
They're
be
better
humble.
than you at something.
Yeah, like come on. Like be humble. If you should be humble in anything, that's a good moment to be. But also it's like how do you say it? Like I try to tell, for like my most recent example, not everybody wants to be your mentor too. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
So like there's ways to get mentors, you know, and there's like good approaches,
but not
to
everyone's
get buy-in.
open to it.
No. If you think like no.
How do you spot that?
It might be like to that leadership thing that we talked about. Like some people are in positions of power and they should be, and they're great leaders and stuff, and some people
found themselves.
I've sold my story to, not sold my story, but like I've done those things to certain people, and you know, face value is kind of like, oh yeah, you know, yeah, and then like certain things might happen and you're just like, yeah, you don't care.
Yeah.
Which is totally fine. Okay. You don't owe me nothing.
Yeah.
You don't owe me nothing. You shouldn't be discouraged from that, you know.
Yeah.
But that I say that to say like there's a way to naturally get some mentors, and there's benefits from it, especially if you have a boss. It's better to have a mentor than a boss. Yeah. Right?
Talk about that a little bit. What do you mean by that?
So like my best mentor, my favorite mentor, she, you know, that's a connection till I die. She was my first corporate boss. That was the woman that hired me in IT or whatever. She when I first started, I had no idea what I was doing. I was totally trying to learn everything I could, whatever the case was. And little did I know, you know, just me talking to her the way that we were talking about, she just became invested in me. And that's a big thing. Like if you could get your boss to be invested in you, then the only thing in your way is you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like and that's what having your boss as a mentor is like. They are your advocate at that point. Now it's not buy-in. You got to get them to buy in and stuff, and that takes work, that takes effort. Like you definitely got to do your job if you want them to buy in, period.
But if they're invested in you, they're going to give you every opportunity to succeed that they can.
Because there's people that do their job. There's people, everybody does their job for the most part, right? Like you're going to go and do your job. There's people that get frustrated for doing their job well and get zero reciprocation. And a good, you know, remedy for that is, why don't you make your boss your mentor? You know, like they are literally superior to you. They know what you're going through and what you should be going through. And even if they don't, there's something you can learn from them. You know, there's a benefit of making somebody your mentor that you might not care to be your mentor.
Yeah. They probably know something you don't. Yeah.
Like, seriously, like that, the nature of that relationship is just beneficial.
Yeah.
You know, like I've had mentors that I didn't care to be my mentor for the most part, but I still facilitated that type of relationship.
Yeah. Because there might have been stuff that you would not want to model after, but there was also stuff that you would want to model after.
And if that's the case, then who cares?
It's like any relationship with any kind of superior ever. I mean, like it makes me think about just like parental relationships in general.
Right.
Like you don't necessarily want to model after every single thing your parents do, but at the end of the day, when you become an adult, especially, you kind of realize they know a lot of stuff you don't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wisdom in there, and there might be certain things that they've done that you want to do differently, but they also know stuff and can teach you stuff constantly.
When I got that job offer or whatever, and I had, that's another thing is like, don't play with those job offers unless you're willing to leave.
Yeah.
Because I've seen both ways where they played with the job offer thing and the company was like, cool, like good, because we were going to let you go or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, I didn't really want to leave, you know?
Yeah.
But when I had that offer, I was ready to go. It was like a 3-day standoff of like no communication. I was like, damn, like, all right. And I talked to my mentor. I was talking to my boss, like, you know, she was like, they're not telling me nothing. Like they're saying like good luck and stuff. And I'm like, wow, all right. Well, so do you want me to start training this person, or like how are we going to do this? Because that means I got 2 weeks or whatever. And she was like, stop, like pump the fucking brakes, man. Like, all right. And she came to work. This is why you make your boss your mentor. The next day, she came to work, and she's super dressed down type of person. She came to work with a dress, makeup, like the 9. I've never seen her like that. And even the whole team was kind of like, damn, like, you dressed up today. And she looked at me like, yes, I did. Because she was going in to talk to the owners and stuff like that day. Like, it was like the last hoorah or whatever. And she ended up making me stay. She ended up negotiating enough to make me stay or whatever the case is. But it's like, if I don't do that, like if I don't make her my mentor for those 3 years that I worked for her,
never would have happened.
I'd have been gone.
Been like, okay.
She'd have been like, cool. Like, I guess we'll get a new guy that could do this, or you know, like, and that adds that personality to the business a little.
A mentor is an advocate for you.
Come on, man. Like,
in all ways.
You gotta, and it's to be worked for. Nobody owes you to be an advocate. Nobody owes you to help you out in life. Like, if you think that's something you deserve, then you are mistaken. Like, you gotta not only work for it and earn it, but like facilitate that a little bit, and then don't be shocked if it's not there because you weren't doing what you needed to do. You know, not just your job, but like those things that we're talking about. And then when you do it, and the time comes, then you're lucky. That's lucky. That's preparation and opportunity. You know, then you're lucky, and then you get to see what that looks like.
Yeah, luck really is when preparation meets opportunity.
That's it, dude.
I love that.
Yeah, man. Speaking of that, we had something else on the docket. I mentioned a couple times working in the warehouse. I worked at my company since I was 16. I worked in the warehouse until I was 20, 21. So it was like 4 or 5 years I was in the warehouse. And everybody knew me as like the kid in the warehouse. Like I would walk around with ripped shirt with like grease and stuff. Like I was on the forklift all the time or whatever. There's a benefit of working in something that can help round you out. And like, what's your goal, right? So in my mind, I wanted to be an accountant. And I was like, you know what? Having inventory experience and stuff like that will help because I see the kids in my classes and they're not working. Like a lot of them aren't working. And let's just say they're going to go work for my company and they're going to be an accountant. They're not going to know the first thing about, you know, inventory processes, cycle counting, value, like stuff like that, you know? So I'm like, you know what? Instead of working at Forever 21 or like something that's totally irrelevant to what I will be doing eventually, why don't I just, regardless of the pay, work somewhere that's going to round me out well? And that applies to everything. So like for me, I'm using my experience as accounting. And then like fast forward, and we talked about the 4 biggest issues CFOs are going to be facing, stuff like that. My accounting experience helped me with costing, inventory valuation, stuff like that. So like every time something comes up that's like, ask Cruz, because he worked down there and he did this and that. Mm-hmm. You know, like it's just that. It's like,
and you continue to be positioned as a problem solver.
Yeah, when we get audited, I'm answering all the inventory questions. Mm-hmm. I'm not a manager. I'm not our controller. I'm not, you know what I mean? But it's like this kid worked there for like 6 years, and then he worked in the system, and then now he's with us. So like, just ask him. You know what I mean? Like it came to a point where it's like, just ask Cruz or whatever. Yeah. But like, my point is because I
and it's just those kind of intangibles that will show leadership. You have to be there. They've got to keep you around.
Yeah,
you're invaluable.
If the warehouse isn't that for you, then get out of the warehouse. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, one of my buddies.
So what you're saying there is, do not just treat your job as a means to an end to get you a paycheck.
Yo.
Treat it as something that can get you to the next level.
Oh, how many people, man, like I got my dad staying at my house, right? And the mindset is just so different, dude. Like his mindset is just not there. And like when I talk to him about work and stuff, he's talking to me like, yeah, well, this job's $16 an hour. This job's $18 an hour. But this job will pay me $20 an hour. And I'm listening. I'm like, you didn't even explain the jobs. Like, what are we talking about here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, you're focused on 16, 18, and 20. Like, what happened? Like,
what's the job?
What's the job?
Where's it going to take you? What's the plan?
And it's that instant gratification, that instant paycheck, that instant this, like, you know, like for him it's a little different. He's older or whatever, but still it's the same thing. It's like you're going to take a $20 an hour job that's going to break your back instead of taking a 16-hour job that you could do for years. You know, like that's just like a different way of looking at it. But like,
or they could prepare you for the skills that's going to give you the 24 an hour.
Come on, man. Yeah. If you're in high school, it's like, yeah, work is good, money's money, that's fine. But if you kind of know what you want to do, cool. Like, you should try to do it, regardless of the pay. If you're in college and you're in marketing, if you're not doing something that can relate in any way, for even if it's for a little amount of money, like if you're well off where you don't need to work, boy, you better be doing something like that totally relates regardless of the money. Yeah. Or if like,
go learn a skill.
Yeah, go learn a skill. You're in management major or something. What industry do you want to be in? Mm-hmm. Just go work in that industry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I know a girl that was in my accounting class and she worked at...
And if you don't know what that industry is, go work in an industry where you can get that you can get any kind of management experience.
Try it out, man. Like, go be a front desk clerk at Morgan & Morgan because you like the law claims or something like that. Mm-hmm. Like, you like to do that kind of stuff. Yeah. Or go do warehouse for a manufacturing plant because manufacturing could be your industry.
And if it's not, then you just learned the very valuable lesson of something you don't want to do.
Yeah. For a job that means nothing. Mm-hmm. Before you, like, are doing high-stake life changes.
Quick little anecdote. I thought about going to law school for a while, and I was even, like, minoring in law for a little bit for, like, a couple semesters in undergrad, like, minoring in law, like, aside from my finance degree. And I worked at a law firm for 9 months as a file clerk just while I was in college, and I came out of it going, yeah, I don't want to go to law school. No. Like, I'm out. Like, I just don't want to do that. And I might have gone to law school otherwise.
Dude.
And it wouldn't have been the right choice for me.
Yeah, man. That's like...
It was a very valuable lesson of that's not what I wanted to do.
It's invaluable. Like, to not waste that time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, like I still question if I picked the right. You know what I mean? And I've been doing a lot of different things, different ways. Very confident in what I'm doing now. But like we talked about, I was like, man, I do podcasts, I do this and that. I should have been a marketer or a salesman or something like that. You know what I mean? I'm in here doing accounting, you know. But then that's the other thing. It's like, that low level like inventory warehouse experience. It built my communication. It built a lot of things that accountants don't stereotypically have, right? So it didn't just round me out well that way, but it rounded me out as a person because I know
your interpersonal skills,
yeah, because I'm like, I know, especially this MBA program, a lot of these things I'm doing are helping me out, but it's like I could go talk to the CFO, I could go talk to the purchasing clerk or whatever, and then I could go to the warehouse and talk to the guys, and you know, so like that's invaluable right there all in itself. You know what I mean? So it's like those are things that you're working on that you never even realized that you were working on.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, I don't want to do that. I want to be the accountant. I don't want to work in the warehouse. And it's like, well, stupid, you can't be an accountant right now because you're in school. So like, why don't you do something that's
pick something that's like at the beginning point of that end point.
Yeah. And then even more important than that, what we were talking about, don't look at the dollar at hand. Look at the goal. Look at the path in it. Because our company, we talked about working for smaller companies, big companies.
No, we should get into that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an area.
So like, there's a benefit of like working at a small company and a big company, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pros and cons of each of them. I can't tell you the amount of people I've referred and gotten like warehouse jobs and stuff, telling them like, yeah, I know you're not getting the most money now, but this company's small and we're growing. So like, there's going to be opportunities. All you got to do is be good. Just be good and you're going to see opportunities. It's a big pro of working at a small company. If it's growing, obviously. Mm-hmm. And some of them look at the job like,
and if they're hiring, they're probably growing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Right. And some people look at it like, well, I'm getting $16 an hour or something like that. Like I could go make 18 at Amazon, you know, if I do the delivery service or something, you know, and I'm like, cool. But like,
where's that delivery service going to take you?
See? Or construction or whatever the case is. Like, I mean, if you're trying to be a project manager or something, like, yeah, do that.
Yeah.
You know, but if you're not doing that, then what are you doing?
You know what? A tough thing about that is, I think if someone sees like a $20 an hour opportunity versus a 16, wherever they're at, whatever that looks like, you have to not only swallow your pride a little bit to take the smaller pay, but you also have to accept a little bit of a lifestyle difference.
Yep.
Like you very well may have to drive a car that's not as nice as you'd like to for a little bit longer. You might have to get a less expensive apartment. You might have to live a little bit leaner, whatever that looks like. But in the long term, it's going to set you up more.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to just know that and be willing to accept that ego hit and that lifestyle change for the longer term picture.
Good things come to those that wait.
Yeah.
Like, it is not a saying for no reason, man. Like, I almost get scared when I feel like I'm indulging too much.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at this point in my life where, we could stop. Like, we could just be like, cool, I'm going to do what I'm doing, and I'm just go as hard as I can. But, like, we're still, like, we're going to the MBA program. Like, we're still doing stuff. I find myself where I'm like, if I'm indulging too much in life, I get uncomfortable. And I'm just like, ooh, like, you're missing out on something. Like, you're going to slip. Like, you're getting ready to slip, bro.
I'm the same way. I think I struggle with that sometimes. Like, I'll get to the end of the night and I'm like, okay, maybe I watch like 30 minutes of this Netflix show. Like, I don't know, should I listen to this podcast instead? Like, it's just like I struggle with it. Like, it's hard.
Vacations and stuff.
You've got to structure it. You do have to structure it in, but at the same time, you can't let that. you can't like always just fall back on that.
No. It's like at some point, like for us, it's probably unhealthy. It is.
It can get unhealthy. Well, it's about finding like what's sustainable for you.
Yeah. What's sustainable?
Yeah.
What's the level that's sustainable? And then just being like, all right, that's okay. But anyway, I kind of got sidetracked or whatever. But
we're talking about the opportunity of being in a smaller company.
Yeah. So like, even in college, stuff like that, everybody's talking about working for big companies, this, and that, depending on what you're doing. I just want to sell working for a small company, how great it could be for you. And a big reason from my accelerated growth is that working for a small company. Like I've gotten, I've seen the market research and stuff for senior accountants, and my age is well below average. Like I'm young for a senior accountant, and I'm like, damn, that's crazy, because like that means there's people like that worked a long time to become a senior accountant, you know? And even some of the other offers that I might have gotten because of that, it's like they're like, wait, you're only 26? And I'm like, what's the problem? You know, or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, I need to realize I've worked at a smaller company. You still got to be good to accelerate and whatnot, like to take full advantage of the opportunities.
Yeah.
But it's there. You know, like when you go to the big companies, you're surrounded by great people, and you're not necessarily the best around, and you're not going to accelerate the same way. And they might not even want you to. Like that's why you company hop or whatever the case is. You know, that's a big thing for small companies, I think. The cons is like if you are accelerating and you are, you know, doing your best and stuff, you'll see a lot more of the variability of skills, a lot more of the variability of motivations and stuff like that, because not everybody's there for the same reason.
Yeah.
You know, you go to a Lockheed Martin, everybody's like, I'm on my shit, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that, this and that, because this is the next step. Everybody's like kind of similar mindsets and stuff like that. Where in a smaller company, you kind of bump into this person that founded it, or like was friends with the person that founded it. And they're just kind of like, you know, so like there's frustrations there too. You know, like I was telling you about it. Like we do some classes, and I'll go home and I'll call my fiance and vent. Like, I can't believe we don't do this shit, you know, because they're literally telling us and like all the pros and cons. Like, if I could just talk to somebody there, you know, and it's like, I got to control that, because it's like, man, not everybody's trying to do it, like thinking the way you're thinking or trying to do what you're trying to do. You can't push that on.
It might not be viable or possible for some reason.
Also true, too.
Yeah.
You know, so... But there's definite pros in working for a small company. Another one is when timing is everything too, especially for small companies, right? Like, so like you got small company, but like those that are blowing up, they're hiring like crazy, and they're hiring big positions, good positions. And especially if you're like, we did the same thing. We had a problem with, we're going to have a new system. We don't understand our costs the best. Like certain things like that. So we hired like directors respected that are good at that. And they're great, and they're still there. But it's like some of them got a fast pass there because my company was growing and was like, cool, we're making you a director. Where like they would have had to work 10 more years to get that position anywhere else.
Right.
You know? The other so that's a big thing too. Like if you're looking for fast growth, like looking at smaller companies and trying to figure out the timing of what they're doing, like if you find out they're just implementing something, if you find out that they're doing something you're good at and is new for them, like that's the best time to get a small company, because they might overpay you compared to some of these other companies or whatever.
Overpay you or overqualify you.
Overqualify.
Either one's going to work out well for you.
1,000%.
If you can grow into it.
The cons of a small company though is like, the position helps, but like, you know, like directors at a small company might make the same thing as a manager at a big company. Yeah. Right? Like
definitely true.
Like 120 or whatever for our directors, that's like a manager at like a Lockheed Martin or something, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like it's a little different, you know. The other thing that I wanted to mention is we've had a lot of people from big companies come to our smaller company, and they never had to wear as many hats, right? When you're at a smaller company and you're thinking about being a generalist or whatever the case is, there's nothing better than a small company to be a generalist.
Yeah.
You touch things you shouldn't. I've done things I had no business doing.
Because it needed help for some reason.
They needed help. Like, hey, there's a big deadline, XYZ. We need your help. I did so much things I had no business doing when I was starting out.
Yeah.
And now it's in my repertoire. Like, now it's like, it's a habit. And it's like, that would never be the case if I started off at a big company.
Yeah.
I would have done baby steps. And then every position change would have been okay, let's take this on. Okay, I hope they don't think I'm bad. Instead, it was like, oh, you need help? Cool, let's do it. And then what do you think? Cool, yeah, all right, I'll do it now if you want. Like, so pros and cons for sure, man. Pros and cons for sure. I just want to say, I don't think small companies get enough benefit.
Yeah.
Benefit of the doubt, man.
It's a good long-term play.
Come on, man.
Especially if you're early in your career.
Or a short-term play. It's a good thing to start your career.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you start at a small company and do the corporate ladder or whatever at a small company? It's a lot easier. You probably get a lot more experience.
A smaller ladder, climb the ladder faster, then move on to the next thing.
And you're probably getting better experience from it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're not going to be better at anything than anybody else, but you've probably seen more than anybody else at the bigger company.
Yeah.
And both are valuable.
Yeah.
So if you can't get one, go get the other. And I'm one of those people that couldn't get into Deloitte, couldn't get into a lot of these places, so I had one option, and that's what I did, and it works out good, and it can work out good.
I love it. And I have a couple repeat questions I like to ask everyone. So my first question I have, and I'll use honestly just starting at the warehouse as the point because you've been with the same company for a while. If you could travel back in time and talk to a younger Cruz as he was first starting with your company in the warehouse, having the experience and the knowledge that you have now, what are a couple things you would tell him to do differently and why?
I would say lean into what you're good at and don't be ashamed for what you're not. That was too general.
I like that though.
Like I was always ashamed for not being very not technical, but like ashamed for not being the smartest kid in class, stuff like that. But then I would go to work and I was the goofy goof, right? Like everybody would, Cruz is here, like, hey, Cruz, like, and I would talk to everybody and this and this and that. And I never saw value in that. I just saw the loss of value in not being great at school, right? And then that changed my confidence when I dealt with certain people throughout what I went through in my career. And luckily it didn't affect me, but it can, like it could affect the opportunities you think you could go for. Like I was like curious, I was nervous to try for that new job opportunity, stuff like that. And it's like, no, you would be good at it. Like you go to work and you could talk to all these people and you
can access mentors really well. You can get the skills you need by deploying that. And
it shapes. People don't realize it, but we shape what we think we can be, and mentally, we shape what we think we could be. We shape what's realistic and stuff like that. And it's bullshit, man. Like, yes, there's reality, there's this and that, but like I didn't think I could graduate with a bachelor's in accounting. I didn't think I'd get my master's eventually. I didn't think a lot of things. I didn't think the people I would talk to, I'd be talking to on the daily and stuff like that. And that's why I would say that is like, man, lean into what you're good at and do not be ashamed for what you're not. Because like there's value everywhere, man. And everybody's got a role in it.
I love it. My other question is, so the show is called Profession Session, and it's because I very much enjoy attacking the question, what does it mean to be a professional? So my question is, what does it mean to be a professional to you personally?
Ooh.
It's typically a different answer from everyone, and I love that about it because there are many different angles and perspectives on this, and I think in reality it's like a conglomeration of everything.
Yeah. To me, to be a professional would be to provide value, to provide value, in a way that's very consumable. I think those that provide value they're not professional, and those that can't provide value, then that's already
you're not even employed at that point.
So it's a fine line to me. I think to provide value in a way that's very consumable.
What's an example of providing it in a way that's consumable? Like, simplest, base, most example.
Let's just say, like, we have a problem with the income statement, like something. Why is this not happening? There's a lot of people out there that could tell you, well, it's because, it's because your costs are too high and this and this and that. So that's like dummy. Or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. It's because your costs are too high, or look at your ratios. Just look at your ratios. Look at your ratios. And they're not wrong.
Yeah.
Right? They're not wrong. That's technically should be value if that person could consume it properly, right? Mm-hmm. But then somebody that goes, all right, come here, sit down. Here's your liabilities. Here's your this. Here's your that. This is what we don't want. This is what we want. And the ratio of that ain't looking too good.
Yeah.
That's a professional to me.
And they're like, maybe they take it a step further. They're like, here's a couple things that can kind of cause a ratio to look like this.
Here's some examples.
This make a ratio look like that. I've seen this make a ratio look like that. Based on what's going on here, this might be going on.
Yeah. Like what I'm getting at is, like, I say value and consumable, but also it's like there's nerds and there's professionals. Mm-hmm. That's another way of saying it. Like, there's somebody that's like they could number you to death or tech you to death or this to death. Mm-hmm. But if you can't make it consumable,
if you can't teach that skill and provide that skill and help others understand
communicate it at
least.
And it's not all communication. There's people that can't communicate the best, but they still are professionals because they know how to just make it digestible. Or they say, I'll convert your stupidness into what I need to be, and I'll give you a product. That's a professional. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I think that barrier is the difference, because I say it all the time. It's like, oh, that's a nerd. Yeah. That's a nerd. And I'm a nerd. Mm-hmm. But like, as long as you can make it consumable, you're a professional. Yeah. And that's how I see it.
You could be both.
Yeah.
Cruz, anything else you would want to share with the audience?
Nah, man.
Talk about the podcast a little bit?
Thank you guys for watching this. I'm super honored, super flattered. This is super cool. This is an awesome episode. I never get to talk about business and stuff the same way. Check me out on Pocket Watch Podcast. That's me and a couple of my buddies' podcasts. It's the point of view of an accountant, entrepreneur, and a realtor. But it's super comedy, super... it's not as insightful as this podcast, I'll tell you that.
Way more entertaining.
It's a good time. It's
way
a good
more
time.
Entertaining, though.
It's a good time. It's definitely a good time. So I enjoy doing this because I get to nerd out, and it's like awesome for me. I don't get to talk like this with my buddies, but that's the balance of our podcast, I guess.
Thanks for nerding out with me.
Yeah, dude. That's the balance of our podcast.
I'm excited to go on yours. It'll be fun.
Yeah, stay tuned. Stay tuned. If you're not subscribed, go subscribe to Pocket Watch Podcast. Brody's going to be on very soon.
And I will provide all the links and information on his podcast down in the description or the show notes. Thank you so much for listening, and that's a podcast.
That's a pod.